after that moment. Everything was different. Everything. This convention is different. The nation is different. The world is different.
Since Tucker Carlson broke into the scenes on television, he has gone to become quite a sensation, with his fearless takes on social and political issues, which most times echo popular sentiments on these issues. On more than one occasion, this outspoken nature has landed him in trouble with some prominent figures and even cost him his place in Fox News sometime last year. Despite these challenges, he has taken to other platforms to continue with his criticisms and has been on to some very interesting events. Recently, he ran an analysis that seems to suggest that something very sinister is cooking in the background, further intensified by the upcoming elections in the United States. According to his recent revelations, the idea of a deep state might not be all fiction after all. Care to find out more? Join us as we shed some light on some of the biggest revelations from Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson is a well-acknowledged conservative commentator who often strong voices his opinions on various political and social issues happening across the United States. Over time in media service, he turned out to be a strong, out-of-the-box thinker who would never hold himself back from unpopular thoughts. His career has affected really controversial topics, which have fans at really dedicated levels, as well as those who hate him. Carlson first gained some notoriety in the early 2000s by co-hosting CNN's Crossfire, on which he gained a certain reputation as being an argumentative conservative. But it wasn't until his Fox News tenure began in 2009 that Carlson really found himself mainstream. He began hosting Tucker Carlson Tonight, anchoring himself as one of the most popular speakers on the network, particularly through the years of the Trump administration. Carlson's show became a venue to air his opinions on immigration, race relations, foreign policy, and the state of American democracy without filter or restraint. One of the hallmarks of Carlson's commentary is a disposition to embrace topics that others might shy away from, and in so doing he affirms the territory of free speech and critiques what he perceives to be excesses of political correctness. Some of those opinions have touched on Black Lives Matter, COVID-19 lockdowns, and the 2020 presidential election, among others. Carlson had, from what was possible to glean, always questioned the mainstream media's take on these issues, speculating about motives and attacking the moral character of his brethren in the media and their political counterparts. This was well received by a large portion of American society, especially conservatives who felt disenfranchised at the hands of the mainstream media. However, it hasn't all been a smooth sail for Carlson. He ran into trouble when Carlson's perceived inflammatory style and choice of incendiary opinions finally went truly over the line. In 2023, his commentaries on various political questions, which were the ongoing events of the riot in Capitol Hill on January 6th and the previous year's elections, turned under severe criticism. He was accused of conspiracy theories and being a spreader of false information. His remarks regarding fraud in the election and his criticism of the United States government as to what transpired at the Capitol did not go well, more especially since many critics may suggest that he contributed to rhetoric polarizing American society. And this all reached a head, of course, with his surprise resignation from Fox News this past April 2023. Since the exact reasons were not made public, many speculated this had something to do with his alleged inflammatory pronouncements and the growing legal entanglement that Fox News is embroiled in, especially regarding its coverage of the 2020 election. Carlson's leaving, in many ways, ended an era at Fox News, where he has been one of the leading voices for many years. Carlson did not mince words looking for his next platform right after he left Fox News. He announced that he was starting a new show on Twitter, now known as X. It resonated with Carlson's thinking, allowing him to stay independent from censorship and talk straight to his audience, free from the tethers of legacy media. Free Twitter rants seemed the perfect platform for the outspoken Carlson to embrace. Carlson's move to Twitter marks a sea change in the media environment and explains why it is that political discourses will always aim at social media platforms. This has also shown that Carlson is adaptive and committed to staying relevant in American politics outside of the straitjacket of cable news. It also remains to be seen where else Tucker Carlson might end up across the media landscape down the road, but his influence and indefatigable ability to comment on contentious issues won't diminish. He recently shook the media once more, when he started pointing fingers at what seems to be a conscious effort to clamp down on free speech, and also what seems to be lax in the country's security structure. He made his points by making reference to the events that happened on January 6, 2021, when the United States Capitol was breached by protesters. Since then, it has been well over 3 years since the event, but Carlson pointed out that the FBI just seems to be obsessed with the issue still. Today, there have been over 1,200 arrests made in relation to the event, and the FBI still seems to be hell-bent on making more arrests. For Carlson, this has gone well beyond being just a move to maintain order, to be a political statement, passing a message to the masses that they should be afraid of the government. To him, the government is just flexing the resources at their disposal in a bid to intimidate everyone into submission and deny the people their voices, even when it seems like everything is going wrong. He also sees this as a clampdown on Trump's chances at having another shot at the presidency. For Carlson, this obsession with intimidating the masses has come at the expense of paying attention to what really matters, which is the protection of the country and its citizens from actual threats that seem to be all around. Tucker pointed at one of the most recent shocking events that involved the Secret Service and the Metro PD. This was the January 6, 2021 pipe bomb incident, which happened at about the same time as the protests that rocked the Capitol at the time. Tucker has been concerned that despite the FBI seeming to have all the technology they need to track down protesters who were unarmed and were of little threat, they seem to be incapable of tracking down the individuals who had placed the 2 pipe bombs found close to the DNC and RNC. He is insinuating that either the government has its priority totally misplaced, or there is an intentional clampdown on the freedom of citizens while criminal elements are allowed to roam free. There was also a tone of conspiracy, especially after the footage of the crime scene was analyzed. The January 6th pipe bombs were a series of devices found on January 6, 2021, near the headquarters of the Republican National Committee and Democratic National Committee in Washington, D.C. As a matter of fact, these pipe bombs came on the same day as the riot in the Capitol, which was the day when a throng of supporters of then-President Donald Trump stormed the U.S. Capitol, demanding a review of the 2020 presidential election results. These bombs were discovered in the early morning of January 6, 2021. 2 suspected devices, one at the RNC and another at the DNC, were reported to law enforcement. Subsequent discovery revealed they were fully capable pipe bombs that would have caused major injuries if they had gone off. Footage from the scene shows a man walking up to the patrol vehicle that was parked close to the scene, while a Secret Service vehicle was just close by. This was the man who called the attention of the security forces to the bomb, but it was the actions of these officers at the scene that shocked everyone. They rarely made any move immediately to show the urgency of the situation. This stirred controversy surrounding the response of the U.S. Secret Service and the Metropolitan Police Department to the discovery of the pipe bombs, especially given the proximity of one of the bombs to then Vice President-elect Kamala Harris, who was attending an event nearby at the Democratic National Committee headquarters. The bomb at the DNC was particularly concerning because Vice President-elect Kamala Harris was at the DNC building at the time, which was not public knowledge until later. However, what shocked everyone was that the footage from the scene shows that the police, just after they had been alerted to the bomb, were seen allowing some children to move close to the position where the bomb was. This would have gone wrong in a number of ways. Beyond how close the bomb was to Harris and the high visibility of the locations, The criticism did stem from how sluggish the law enforcement response was, particularly from the U.S. Secret Service and the MPD. The outcry focuses on a few key points, among them being that Kamala Harris wasn't evacuated quickly enough. She was taken away from the DNC headquarters only close to 1 p.m., about 90 minutes after her arrival, despite the presence of a pipe bomb. The bomb had been discovered at about 12:45 p.m. It took a while before Harris was evacuated, not to talk of children who were let close to the red zone. It now begs the question if the Secret Service is indeed prepared for its duties. Along with this, there was a recent close call on the assassination of Trump, which led people to question their preparedness. Secret Service is assigned to guard high-profile officials. Harris, being vice president-elect at the time, was supposed to be one of the most protected figures in the country. The point all these raised was the fact that a pipe bomb was planted so near her location, and not till long afterward did it remain undetected, which raised very critical questions concerning security protocols and how effective the sweep conducted for this event actually was. There were also criticisms regarding the role of the Secret Service, MPD, and other federal agencies. As it has been reported, there wasn't prompt communication among them, which caused an undue delay in the preliminary process of the response itself. Communication is the key to not having such delays in such instances. There was great scrutiny from the public, media, and Congress based on this. A lot of questions emerged on what kind of security measures were put in place, on a day when the chances of having an unrest was already high. In the series of inquiries from Congress over events relating to January 6th, questions have been raised with regard to the security lapses that permitted the delay in response to the pipe bombs. The incident has brought into debate the need for more coordination and protocols for response among law enforcement, particularly when it comes to the protection of high-profile officials and critical government buildings. The slow response to the discovery of the pipe bombs, especially in the context of Kamala Harris's proximity, underlined how vulnerable the already in-place security was, and therefore called for improvement. The discovery of these pipe bombs further deteriorated what was already a chaotic and dangerous situation in Washington, D.C. that day. Then the Capitol was under siege with those explosives near two major political parties' headquarters, making the situation even more haunting. They appeared to be part of a greater scheme for terror and chaos, but were eventually brought under control. After these events, the FBI soon launched an investigation in pursuit of the suspect who planted the bombs. The FBI released a surveillance video in which a suspect was seen in a hoodie, gloves, and a mask near the RNC and DNC buildings late in the evening on the 5th of January, 2021. Even after the FBI has attached a reward to anyone who might have any information about the culprits, there seems to be no success recorded. So for Carlson, he is shocked that the FBI is focusing on people who were unarmed, tracking them down, and arresting them for being part of the protest, but have failed in tracking individuals who seem to have been potentially of greater danger to others. With the technology available to the FBI, the chances of these culprits eluding them seem most unlikely, but that appears to be the status quo. Since then, there have been conspiracies on what the issue might be. Some seem to think that there might have been another reason why those bombs were planted, which supports the existence of a deep state that wants to control the narrative. This likely must have stemmed from the scare of a Trump presidency, for reasons that haven't been made clear. There just seems to be more than meets the eye. Tucker links this conspiracy to the position that various political leaders have had on the rate of illegal migration. Everyone knows that Trump stands strongly against that, but the likes of Biden haven't really had a strong stand against this. For starters, Tucker seems to think that there is a conspiracy against whites who originally settled in the country. To drive his point, he makes reference to the Nikki Haley situation, where there was an attempt to remove Trump as the presidential candidate of the Republicans. Despite being in the same party, Nikki and Trump seem to have vastly differing views on immigration. And this was the point that caught Tucker's attention. Nikki Haley is one of the leading Republicans who succeeded in establishing a loud position on a myriad of issues, among them being immigration, different from that of former President Donald Trump. She is a former United States ambassador at the United Nations and the first female governor of South Carolina. She has built a reputation of being a pragmatic leader with principles and a soft touch on complex issues such as immigration. Her immigration sentiments are poles apart from Trump's, which earned her hardliner pronouncements that placed her as one of the frontliners in the Republican primaries, and gained her following from individuals and groups who held a more centrist belief than hers. Tucker seems to believe that Haley was being backed by some powerful people who wanted to see Trump out of the race, despite knowing that Haley didn't have a shot at winning the general elections owing to her limited popularity. Haley's take on immigration focused on making policies that are balanced and compassionate, one that enforced the rule of law while continuing to embrace the role of immigrants in American life, while Trump has been associated with policies around strict border enforcement, a language that his critics continue to label as xenophobic. Out of this camp comes Haley, who's called for the country to be more inclusive. This is in stark contradiction to some of Trump's policies, for instance, the building of border walls and the generally more stringent rule around immigration. She agrees that border security needs to be enforced, but she is on record for some of Trump's scathing views that, according to her, do not take into consideration the complex nature of immigration and alienate immigrant communities. In the run-up to the Republican primaries, Nikki Haley became a formidable candidate against Trump, mainly because she made policy stances quite different in kind and appealed to what seems to be a current trend in government for some reason. The run of Nikki Haley offered to Republicans in the primaries an alternative race to the Trump brand of populism with conservative principles leavened by diplomacy and inclusiveness. To Tucker, her emergence seems suspect. The Haley campaign would eventually pick up steam because she was quick to brand herself as an aspirational leader who brought everybody together to expand the party vision. Issues in which she is pointedly focused on pragmatic solutions like immigration resonated with voters who are not comfortable with Trump's perceived polarizing rhetoric, but who were still on the same page with his conservative vision. In more recent times, Haley has been one of the conservative candidates enjoying the support of some key figures, some of whom seem to prove Tucker's claim of a conspiracy. These figures include Reid Hoffman and Chris Sununu, who have taken an interest in her stand on the immigration issue and sponsored her campaigns. Billionaire entrepreneur and LinkedIn co-founder Reid Hoffman is known as more moderate and centrist on the political spectrum. Hoffman began supporting candidates who illustrate the type of inclusive and conservative manner of representing the country that he stands for, regardless of party affiliation. His support for Haley marked a recognition that she was best placed to carry on with his own beliefs, which to Tucker seems a little suspect. Another voice of support for Haley came through in the form of Chris Sununu, the governor of New Hampshire. Sununu has held a moderate reputation and emphasized pragmatic government. He was often against what he felt was the Trump way, and instead favored policies that pushed for social inclusion. His endorsement of Haley reflected a shared vision for the Republican Party, one that is conservative in origin but responsive to the changing demographics and needs of the country. In all, Tucker seems to suggest that the gang up against Trump seems to be a result of more sinister plans to weaponize immigration. To what end? No one knows yet, but we will find out soon enough. Do you share the same sentiments with Tucker? Let's know your take in the comments, and we will see you in the next one.